And welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, The Silly Ghost. Today we'll be looking at the slow decline of Facebook. Speaking straight off the bat, I am willing to wager $100 right now that in the next 10 years or so, Facebook will have gone not quite the same way as MySpace, but much the same way as John Travolta. As in, it was very popular for a certain period of time back in the day, but as the years went on, and after a few scandals, strange decisions, and bad cosmetic modifications, it will be a has-been within the ever-expanding social media landscape. Some would say that is already the case now. Facebook was founded in 2004 by the Zuckmeister and a few of his college buddies at Harvard. Or if you've watched The Social Network, you could argue it was Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss who came up with it first, and Zuckmeister just stole their idea. But you be the judge of that. The late 2000s and early 2010s were the golden years, with Facebook experiencing rapid growth and becoming the #1 social media platform in the world, where it boasted a whopping 2.9 billion monthly active users. While in many ways it is still the most dominant social media platform, with everyone from your grandma to even your pet goldfish now having a Facebook account, it has for the very first time recently lost more users than it has gained. Facebook's active users went down by about 500,000 users to 1.93 billion people at the end of 2021. There are several factors involved that could explain this, and while I could spend all day talking on and on to you about the finer details, I realise that you all have lives to live, so I'll be focusing on just 3 of the biggest factors as to why Facebook has had this decline. Number 1, the overtaking popularity of Instagram and TikTok with younger generations. When Instagram was launched in October of 2010, Zuckmeister saw it as a real competitive threat due to its growing appeal not just with younger people, but also to businesses and entrepreneurs who saw it as a more effective tool to help advertise their products and services. So Facebook bought Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion, which was an absolutely staggering sum for a company that at the time only had 13 employees. According to Statista, more than half of the global Instagram user population is younger than 34 years old. Nearly 2/3 of Instagram users are aged between 18 to 29, with 18 to 34-year-olds as the most active age group. As of November 2019, there were 9,442,000 Instagram users in Australia. This accounts for 37.2% of the entire population. The majority of Australian Instagram users are female, 57.1%. 3,100,000 Australian users are aged between 25 to 34. Today, Instagram has over 1 billion monthly users and contributes over $20 billion to Facebook's annual revenue. It can be said that Instagram is a safety net. So when Facebook dies, the company can still survive on photos of Botox Barbies, also known as influencers, showing off their latest chest and butt implants. I guess if you have heaps of the sweet moolah, you can easily just buy out the competition, make it part of your business empire, and rake in even more sweet moolah. But what if that competition is based in another country, especially a massive economically competitive country? Hello TikTok, or as it's known in China, Douyin, brought to you by the Chinese company ByteDance Limited. I think it's safe to say that TikTok is all the rage lately, especially among kids and young adults. According to the Digital Report, TikTok's users are 51% male and 49% female. 8% of 16 to 64-year-old Australians were on the platform in January 2020. This percentage equates to more than 1.7 million people. 41% of TikTok users are aged between 16 to 24 years old, but it's not entirely off limits for adults. It's particularly popular among those in their 40s, who make up 16.8% of the app's user base. And it's estimated that TikTok will reach 755 million monthly users in 2022. When you combine the two, Insta and TikTok, and its popularity among young people in comparison to Facebook, it's a clear indication of a slow but eventual decline where Instagram and TikTok will have more users than Facebook as it turns into a digital wasteland, populated only by grannies sharing their baking recipes and cat memes. And the cycle will repeat itself when another platform emerges that is somehow more appealing than Insta and TikTok everyone moves over there, and then Insta and TikTok decline and die. To quote that Daniel Lanois song in Red Dead Redemption 2, "That's the way it is. That's the way it is." Number 2. The number of scandals Facebook has been at the center of. In August of 2008, Facebook allegedly violated federal wiretap law. A federal class action lawsuit alleged that Facebook had been analyzing and publishing the behavior of users without their consent. Users had their purchases on sites like Blockbuster and Zappos published to their newsfeed, in one instance ruining a plaintiff's Christmas present for his wife. This lawsuit highlighted Facebook as approaching violations of anti-hacking law and wiretapping law, a decade before a similar but bigger scandal, which I'll mention in a second. Between 2012 to 2014, Facebook discussed selling users' data in documents revealed by a lawsuit. In 2017, app developer 643 sued Facebook for closing its API from developers like themselves who were dependent on user data to build products. Documents involved in the case, that Facebook attempted to keep sealed with a court order, reveal conversations as early as 2012 in which the platform discussed monetizing user data. Facebook declined to comment on the contents of the documents beyond the director of developer platforms and programs, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, claiming that the fact that they were presented in a way that is very misleading without additional context. In March of 2018, the infamous Cambridge Analytica files are published by The Guardian. Facebook's biggest ever data breach at the time, in which the data from 50 million user profiles was co-opted by political consultancy group Cambridge Analytica. A whistleblower revealed that the information had been used to profile audiences for Trump's election campaign material, as well as the efforts of Vote Leave during the Brexit saga. The $1 million profile harvesting operation brought the importance of data protection to the fore and illustrated the power of data as a commodity. And in October just last year, Frances Hogan, a former Facebook product manager turned whistleblower, came out and exposed how the tech giant puts profit before the public good. Frances Hogan left the company in May last year and took with her tens of thousands of pages of internal documents known as the Facebook files that contained a litany of revelations, including celebrities being treated differently by Facebook compared to the average user. Its response to employee concerns about human trafficking was often weak. Facebook faces a huge lawsuit from shareholders. Facebook promoted positive stories about itself and, of course, never acknowledged the negative. Instagram knew that it was harming the mental health and self-image of teenagers and did nothing about it. A Facebook algorithm change in 2018 increased divisiveness on the platform, and nearly 90% of Facebook's moderation efforts are focused on English content, despite the majority of users being non-English speakers. These are just a few examples of how Facebook, including Instagram, has been and continues to be quite dodgy, especially with our personal data. But it's not just Facebook, it's almost all social media. With more and more people waking up to the fact that social media in general is just not good for our privacy and mental health, folks who previously had a Facebook or other account have now been logging off entirely. This could partly explain why 500,000 users deleted their accounts as mentioned earlier. Number 3, the Metaverse. Another thing more recently that's made people become further disillusioned with Facebook is when Zuckmeister decided to change the Facebook company name to Meta in October of last year, along with a big announcement that Meta will be developing a virtual reality world known as the Metaverse, where people wear fancy VR goggles and have their own personal avatars that allow you to socialize with other avatars, work a job, and do all kinds of activities. They've pretty much taken the concept from the movie Ready Player One, but instead of being able to play as your favorite characters and live out these awesome fantasies where you have all these amazing abilities, you just live the same way as you normally would in the real world, which honestly sounds a bit boring and pointless. And it's estimated that this whole thing will cost somewhere around $800 billion. In an article by the Technology Letter titled Moneyverse, Why the Metaverse Will Fail, it is said, quote, "Most of that money is to be made by video game makers such as Roblox, most of it from selling hardware and software. That makes sense, as the only part of the metaverse that is not complete nonsense at the moment is the video game aspect of it. People spending hours inside of a game. So, The real investment thesis becomes whether Roblox or another company, perhaps Meta, will garner incremental dollars by expanding from games into other stuff that you're supposed to do while wearing a helmet on your head and staring into a virtual world. The other stuff would, theoretically, include attending concerts in a virtual world, shopping in a virtual world, or watching the next version of TikTok videos in a virtual world, I suppose. A recent investor pitch deck by a sell-side shop featured lots of suggested use cases, such as doing all your work in a virtual world and attending classes. All of this is very generic, which means that the street hasn't really come up with any insights other than to say that your entire life will be more like a video game, but still have a lot of the tedious, boring parts from which you used to try to escape by playing video games. It's not in the DNA of companies such as Meta to make great consumer experiences, and Steve Jobs is dead, so the chances of anyone making a truly popular interface to a virtual world you would want to live in, even Apple, are slim. The other, more important reason that the metaverse will fail is that the companies that grew up on the internet, that have become phenomenally wealthy off of it, have failed to grasp the essence of the internet in their zeal to replace it. These companies are not capable of creating the next internet. Other critics have also said that by focusing on the metaverse and renaming itself while the company is reeling from a PR crisis, Francis Hogan and the Facebook files, the timing does seem a bit coincidental. Facebook is distracting from the problems it creates or contributes to in the real world. Issues like harming teens' mental health, facilitating the spread of disinformation, and fueling political polarization. The point is, whether you think the metaverse is a cool idea or not, it shouldn't, as just mentioned in that article quote, distract us from the shady shit Facebook, or now Meta, has been involved in over the last few years. To me, it feels like the metaverse is just a desperate move by Zuckmeister to keep Facebook relevant as it slowly but surely fades into obscurity. Virtual reality is nothing new, and people are already playing video games on a VR headset in their homes. So why would they want to live in a world where they can live their normal, everyday life, but just virtually? It just makes no goddamn sense. I could be wrong though. Maybe the metaverse will be a huge hit with the masses when it takes off. Only time will tell. And there you have it, folks. Those are 3 of the biggest factors as to why Facebook is on the decline, and why I'm wagering $100 that by 2030 or so, it will have gone not quite the way of MySpace, but certainly the way of John Travolta. In other words, irrelevancy. Let me know in the comments if you believe that Facebook will still be around in another decade, or if there were other factors I missed. And also, if you've deleted your Facebook account, let us know what your reasons were and whether it related to anything mentioned here. Alrighty then, thanks for watching. I'm your host, The Silly Ghost, signing out.